Good morning, Joe here. Where I'm standing now is a really special place. This is the German-Czech Republic border. It's quite early, it's quite cold, but I'm going to do something now that wasn't possible as long as the Iron Curtain, which ran straight through here, existed. You couldn't do this. You couldn't even get to this spot, although this is still Germany here. A couple of meters is Czech Republic. In those days it was the Soviet Union that was ruling all those satellite countries. So, communists at work. Impossible to do in those days. Now I can do it, and when I've walked over there, I'll show you in the little guard's house here. I'll show you what it used to look like. Cheers. So I'll be doing some filming and I can show you the marks that have been left, the traces of the once powerful Iron Curtain. It runs through the whole landscape here, through Germany. I'll show you that on this a little bit later. But what I wanted to say and why I'm doing this is the argument that because the Soviet Union imploded and people were protesting and they couldn't take it anymore and they went to the streets, that's the reason why the Iron Curtain came down. Well, I don't believe that. It's not. The reason why the Iron Curtain came down was because the Soviet Union was basically bankrupt. The German Chancellor, Helmut Kohl, who is like the guy who reunited Germany, well, the people claim that. He said recently in an interview or part of his memoirs, when he was writing his memoirs, that Gorbachev, they had talked, Kohl and Gorbachev, and Soviet Union was basically bankrupt. So the protesters were allowed to hit the streets. That's why, this is an argument that's often used when it comes to communist China. China will change, the Chinese will rise up, or I think it's a false hope, because there's a big difference between the Soviet Union and the Chinese Communist Party, or that place, China, run by them. The West is supporting China. We're giving them our know-how, we're giving them our jobs, they're making all the crap for us, all the made in China stuff, and they're building up the military. So the West is making them stronger. That's the big difference. The Soviet Union was always the enemy of the West. So all the countries were unified and putting pressure on Russia, which ultimately led to the Soviet Union's collapse. And that's the difference with China. Everybody's in bed with China. So this false hope of, China will implode or China will break apart, just like the Soviet Union did, that would be true if there was unity in the Western world, which there isn't. So recently, this thing in Paris, Europe stands with Tibet. Europe stands with Tibet, but also recognizes Tibet as part of China. So even in the slogans, there's a lie, or a hidden false hope luring someone into just staying asleep and accepting the status quo between the West and China. That's something we shouldn't accept. I used to believe the West was at least 50% responsible for what's going on in Tibet, East Turkestan and Mongolia, but now I believe the percentage is even higher in the West, because we have freedom. It's our responsibility. We can't expect the people of China, of Tibet, East Turkestan to rise up, because we know what's going to happen to them. So we have to rise up. And we have to rise up against the people that we, as taxpayers, are paying to do a job that they're not doing. We are not paying them to support Chinese communism. The simple fact that I can stand here proves that things do change and can change and ultimately will change. Everything changes, we know that. But the thing about China, when we get back to China, is China will change, definitely, but will it change for the better? I think that's our task. We have to ensure that China changes for the better and things don't get worse, because China is having more influence on our societies than we are having on them. And our politicians are fault. So we have to pressurize our politicians. And I personally believe we would have a bigger effect if we protested in front of the White House, Downing Street, the Bundeskanzleramt in Germany, than we would have if we continue to protest in front of some Chinese consulates or embassies, because they just honestly don't give a shit. If we do, then we have to take our issues to the people that we are paying to take care of us, and they are our politicians. And they're not doing their job, and I can't say it often enough. They are not doing the job. And we can moan and groan and complain, but we're only going to change that if we take it to them, right in their faces. That's our responsibility. We can't wait for the Chinese to rise up. Why should they? Because they're going to get slaughtered. Well, I promised that I'd find some traces of the Iron Curtain, and we found a really good one. We talked to people down in the village where we're staying, and they told us there was a old radar station. It's desolate now. It hasn't been used. I think it lost its significance in the early 90s after the fall of the Iron Curtain, but it's still here. There's sheep grazing in the inner, perimeter or whatever. And people we talk to, they're grown-ups now, but they grew up in a situation that we as free people, and probably if you're from Tibet or East Turkestan, then you know what it's like. They, on the German side or on the western side of the border, they had American troops, British troops, French troops, all the troops from NATO that were protecting their side of the fence. And on the other side, you had ruled by the Soviet Union, you had Czechoslovakian troops that were posted all along in these woods. I've taken some pictures of some traces of bunkers and things like that. And this radar station, people down in the village were telling us, when they were growing up, they were told when they were using the phone not to say anything negative, because they were listening through back in those days, they were also able to tap into phones, and this was the station for it. So they had radar and telecommunications and ways and means of tapping into phones and listening to what what was going on on the airwaves of the NATO, you know. So border was really, really well protected on this side, on the Soviet Union side. But of course, maybe they were telling the people that it was just propaganda. They were not protecting their people, they were actually stopping their people from escaping to the free world, which in those days was the West and hopefully still is. So all sorts of lines of defense, as they said, bunkers, you just see concrete slabs. So have a look at I just saw nice little lambs. Life is good when you see animals with their little babies, and it's spring, although there's snow here and it's very windy and chilly. It's about 980 meters. So have a look. I'll walk around and do some filming and show you what it looks like. This is on the top of a mountain, and this is how much communists invest to get all this gear up here, to set it up, to force soldiers to live up here for many, many years. They're willing to invest this kind of stuff, all this money, all this manpower, just to keep people in. So it's very similar to what the Chinese are doing. Chinese are investing so much money in their military in what they call defense, but actually they're only just trying to keep their people in, and not only their own people, but the Tibetans, people from East Turkestan and Mongolia. And it's so sad. And as I said before, this is proof things do change, but only changed because the Soviet Union was always the enemy of the West, and that's a big difference. So all this talk about Europe stands with Tibet, and Obama or any president in the map room with His Holiness, this is just to keep the status quo, to keep us dreaming that things will change. Actually, we in the West, we in the free world, we are the ones that are changing, because we are looking on as our leaders are in bed with the Chinese communist horse. I don't have any other word for them. I have worse words for them, so I'll just call them Chinese communist whores. And our politicians are doing it too, with them. And that's what we have to stand up for, and stand up against, and speak out about, because they should be doing their job and they're not. They're getting paid to work for us. They're getting paid to work for freedom. They were elected in a democratic society, and we cannot allow the people responsible for democratic societies to be in bed with Chinese communists.